everybody, it's Emily from Life So Savory, and today I'm going to be combining two tutorials of mine to make a cute dress for my daughter. We're going to be making my cheater V-neck shirt, and then we're going to add a skirt to make it a dress, as well as adding flutter sleeves, which is a fun and very easy I would love for you to say hi, let me know where you're watching from, as well as share this to your timeline or sewing group that you're part of if you're able to do that as well. So those are two things you can check out to do while I am getting this ready. And of course, my computer is being funny while I'm trying to do this, but we'll get it going. I think it's working now. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing well on this Wednesday afternoon, or if it's the next day, if you're somewhere on the other side of the world. We are doing well here. It's a beautiful day out now, so of course that makes me very happy. Okay. So if you missed my introduction at the very beginning, we are going to be combining two of my tutorials to create a fun summer dress, and we are going to do that. Yay! I'm glad, I'm so thankful for good weather. So we're going to be using my cheater V-neck tutorial, which is an easy way to make a V neckline without actually having to make a V neckline. So I'm so excited to show you this. It looks so cute and is so easy. So I have done a bajillion t-shirt necklines, including this one. However, V-necks scare me. Having to fiddle with that middle part and make sure it's stretched perfectly, I don't know. It's just not my thing. So I created a cheater V-neck, and so I'm going to share that with you. And as well, we're going to add flutter sleeves, which is just a cute, loose, fluttery sleeve that you can do with knit fabric, and we're going to add that to the dress as well. So I'm excited to do those two things with you. We're going to get started by doing our pattern edits, and I'm going to show you how we're hacking my girls swing tee. So you can do this with any t-shirt, okay? And I'll show you how to modify the pattern to create both the V-neck and the sleeves. But I'm using my free pattern, which is the girls swing tee. And if you click the link in the description of this video that says V-neck tutorial, you will get links to all of my free t-shirt patterns, and I have many, including girls, boys, women's. I have a fitted women's tee. I have this semi-fitted women's tee, which is a little bit looser fit. I call it my boyfriend tee, and that's what I'm wearing here today. And so that is what we're doing. Okay, so I'm going to put the camera so you can see a little bit closer of what we're doing, and then we'll get started. So I'm not sure if the volume's on your end or my end, but okay. So now you can see my cutting board. Okay, and so I have here the sleeve for the girls swing tee, which is what we're going to be using. So I'm going to first show you how to make this into the flutter sleeve look, and then we will make the V-neck. So she is tall and thin, my daughter, so I am cutting or tracing the size 5, and then I've already just measured how long I want the skirt to be. So let's see, mark the back and the front. Okay, so I've traced that on there. Then we'll use my paper scissors. Got to mark Got to mark those, paper, and then the rest on this table are fabric. I'm not green. I checked it before I went live. I've even been able to reverse it so that you guys aren't seeing me backwards. And I'm not green and not backwards, so yay! Yes, Rose. What? Come here. It's fine. You can go ahead. What? What? Please.
No, it was raining, but I have to.
That's fine. That's fine. Just put this on the counter. Okay. When I call you back down to try on the dress, you need to come down, okay? All right, so here is the sleeve, and I don't know, can't hear me very well. This is the same as I always do, so I'm sorry if you're not able to hear me. Hopefully you can turn it up on your end. So then I take this and I splice it so that I can spread. Okay, take your charger. Spread out the end, just the hem end of the sleeve. So we make it bigger, and I'll show you how to do that. I don't know why the sound is low. It's very weird. Lower than normal? Obviously it must be if so many of you are commenting on it. Let's see. Sorry. Okay, is this any better? Can you guys hear me better? Any bit better? Yes? No? Maybe so? Sorry, I don't mean to be fiddling with it. I'm just trying to get it where you guys can hear me. Okay, so we've spliced, looks like a little octopus now, our sleeve. And we'll cut that out in just a minute. But I also want to show you how we're going to edit the front of the pattern. Okay, so I have here the front of the shirt, and I shortened it because we're going to make a dress out of this. So obviously this isn't the full length of a shirt, but I've got some of the shirt here. So what we're going to do first, and you can use your straight edge or you can just sort of eyeball it, is we're going to take the scoop neckline and we're going to turn it into a V. So I'll show you that here. Okay, so you can see I took the straight neckline and I made it into a V. And then we are also going to, from just under the underarm, just under, like a smidge under it, you're going to make another mark. Okay, so now I've taken any t-shirt pattern. I've taken the scoop neck, I'm creating a V-neck with it. I've also marked the bottom, and we're going to cut on both of those lines. So the sleeve hack is very similar. The sleeve hack is very similar to what I did on the swim top. Yep. Okay, so now you can see how that would be one side of a V-neck. All right. So now we'll cut two of these in mirror, right? Because we're not cutting it on the fold anymore, but we're going to cut two for the left and the right on the front of the shirt. And if you're not quite sure how this is all going to come together, you can either keep watching, because I'm going to show you, or two, if you want to click through to the tutorial I wrote about this, you'll be able to see how each of these steps comes together. and why I'm doing what I'm doing. So you can kind of skip ahead and get a little view. Okay, so now we have the left and the right. I've pre-cut out the back, so we're good on that one. I'm just putting these pieces together. I've also pre-cut out the neckband, and we'll talk more about that in a minute. And here's my sleeve piece. And so I'm going to cut both of them at the same time so that I know they're the same. So let me just get my fabric sort of lined up here. I'm going to put, so you would put one pin or magnet, a couple pins or magnets along that top because we want that to stay the same. And then we're going to stretch out those outer wings, right? And then we will cut our sleeve like that. Okay? So Kim, the cutting mat, all the information is on my website. If you go to lifesosavory.com and search cutting mat, it should come up. It's one of the more recent posts and really the only one that I've written actually about a cutting mat. So you should be able to find that if you search. Okay, so now hopefully we have two sleeves. I've cut them in mirror. I'm going to put a pin on this side, marking the front. This is the front of the sleeves. So when it comes down to putting those on, we'll be able to do this. Okay. So I'm cutting across the grain line's going this way. I'm cutting across the grain line like you normally would on a sleeve, a net sleeve. Okay, and I know there's more leeway on nets. So now we have all of our pieces. I have my skirt pre-cut to the right length, and it's just the width of fabric. So I'm going to leave that there. We're going to go work on the V-neck and the flutter sleeves, and then we'll come back and finish the skirt. Okay, so now we can check out some of the rest of how we're going to be doing this. I have to show you guys this. So my kids love playing with my bin of clips, and I'll come over to my work table every once in a while and find all kinds of clip creations, but this is my latest one. So this is a thread guard from one of my sewing machines, and clips have been put on it, and now it's a little, I don't know, spaceship or something, but I find our Lego creatures have taken over. Sometimes we get all kinds of little things on here. Okay, so I'm gonna change, I don't know if I really have a thread that matches this very well. For the flutter sleeve, it is best to have thread as close as matching as possible, because you're going to see your stitching. Okay, so, and I've also linked to this flutter sleeve tutorial, so if you want more details about what I'm doing, you can go ahead and check that out. I'm going to go ahead and put a knit needle back on. Make sure I can find one. I had switched out recently. Okay, so I am sewing, this whole dress is sewn with knit fabric. And the pattern is designed for knit fabric, so I don't know how this V-neck hack would work not with knit. I have never tried it. So to make the flutter sleeve, this is just such a fun and easy little sewing hack. And I'm just gonna test it real quick on a scrap piece. And I would probably advise you to do this if you haven't ever done this before. But what we're gonna do is I'm gonna put a thin zigzag on the edge of the sleeve. And as I sew, I'm gonna stretch. So the zigzag will keep that fabric stretched out, which then when you're in the end gives a fun little, I call it a flutter sleeve. My mom used to do this on almost all of our knit clothes because she just found it easier than hemming. Okay, so I'm making, see the width, I'm gonna put it at like 2.5 millimeters, and I have my length at 1.2, but that's where we'll get to test and see if we like that. So we're gonna sew right on the very, very edge. It's also called a lettuce hem, maybe, because it's like the edge of a lettuce leaf that is all curly. So you're gonna pull and stretch as you sew. Okay, and I'm zigzagging right on the edge, and I'm stretching out the fabric, and it just creates a really fun little look. Okay, so can you see how we have this little cute curly edge? This is just my scrap piece. I'll show you on my sleeve as well, but it's just a fun little finish. So now we're gonna get rid of the scraps and go from there. These are Fiskars, and I got them at a Black Friday sale years ago at Joann Fabric for not very much, but they have stayed sharp for like 3 years, which I find pretty amazing for not expensive scissors. So, but I love them. They're so cute. So, Connie, I am using a zigzag on my sewing machine, and I have it set the length at 1.2 millimeters, the width at 2.5 millimeters, if you want the exact thing. So now I'm going to sew that same lettuce flutter pull zigzag on the edge of my sleeve. I'm pulling my fabric to stretch it out as I'm sewing, and I'm sewing right on the edge. So it's literally kind of like a rolled hem where it's finishing the edge of the fabric as I'm sewing. I don't have any extra fabric. It's totally enclosing that edge. And the more you pull and the more you stretch, the cuter the edge of your sleeve will be. So I'll show you this one when I get all the way to the end, but you're just gonna love it. And this works with knit fabrics because knit fabrics doesn't fray. So we don't really have to worry about hemming the edge of the sleeve. And I think this is cuter with shorter sleeves than longer sleeves because it's, kind of loose and flowy. All right, so look at the cute edge on this sleeve. Isn't that adorable? So you can picture that as a little short sleeve on a dress. So there's one. Let's do the other one. And I mean, you could do the V-neck first, or you could do this. There's not really a reason why I'm doing the sleeve before the neckline. I just am. So remember, the key is to stretch. You can't just let the fabric feed naturally through your machine. You have to stretch it out, which goes against, of course, the bobbin thread is almost empty, goes against everything we know about sewing, right? That we're stretching as we're sewing. We never want to do that. I'm going to see how far I can get here. Oh, it's going to keep stopping me. All right. I was thinking the other day of paying my 11-year-old, thanks Gertrude, to see if I could show him how to wind bobbins, and if he would just sit here and make me bobbins of multiple colors, because I am forever running out and I never thread them myself until I have to, like this. But how great would it be if I just had a whole bunch of bobbins there? So, Louis, you could try it on your serger. I never have because it's so easy to do it on the regular sewing machine. You could do a rolled hem, but it would be a lot more thread. I really like that there's just, you know, a tiny bit of thread. It's not really thick on there, whereas I find, you know, the threads of a rolled hem are a lot bulkier. So I'm not sure if how it would do that sort of lettuce look, but I'm sure you could figure it out, especially if you lengthened your stitch. But I've just always done it like this, probably because the first time I did, well, I probably had a serger. Let's say I didn't have a cover stitch when I first started sewing for my kids, but I did have a serger. Okay, now we should be back in action and pulling our fabric again, keeping our zigzag right on the edge. My fabric just started to fold over a little bit, which I don't want it to do that because it's going to make the edge thicker, and that's not really what I want. So see if I can keep it from doing that. And here is sleeve number 2. Okay? Ooh, Cindy, pre-wound bobbins. That sounds amazing. I always, you know, when I get a new machine, the brother ones often come with pre-wound bobbins, and of course I love using those, but they're usually always just white, and more than not, they're just that really thin bobbin thread, which I find doesn't work as well for clothing. So I definitely need to check that out. Okay, so there's a second sleeve. So cute and so easy, and just adds such a fun little element to your sewing. Now, I widened the hem of my sleeve to begin with. You don't have to. You could just keep it narrower if you wanted, but I just wanted it to be a little more of the flutter look. So we're going to set those sleeves to the side, and we're going to begin our V-neck. So I have the back pre-cut, like I said, and we have the front. So we are going to now sew the shoulder seams with right sides together. We're going to sew the shoulder seams of the front to the back. And you might notice that the back of my shirt is longer than the front of my shirt. Okay, so you can see this back is longer, and that's because just for the design of this dress, I didn't want to start my skirt right here at the underarms, which is where my piece on the front is cut. So I have, after we finish the V-neck, I'm going to put this panel onto the front, which will lengthen the front to be the same length as the back before we put our skirt on. So just bear with me. It'll hopefully all make sense as we go, but I'm just trying something a little bit different, okay? So I am going to now sew the shoulder seams with the included 3/8 seam allowance that is on my girls' swing tee pattern, which we're not making a tee, we're just using really the top neck and shoulders. We won't see any of the swing because we're just going to put a gathered skirt on. I think the last time I did gathering, I did it on my sewing machine. So maybe today we'll do gathering on the serger for fun. Okay, So now we have an open neckline. Okay. I'm going to put neck binding on this open neckline starting at the bottom of one V all the way around to the bottom of the other V. And so I've cut my neck band 1 3/4 inch. And what I need to do is leave a bit of an overlap. So I want to make sure I have at least an inch of overlap coming off my V and going from there. I'm sorry you guys can't hear me today. I don't know what's going on. Last week I was green. This week you can't hear me. It's very strange. I'm sorry. And I'm just, before I get started on that, I noticed that I've got my neck binding inside out. That would be not the best look ever. Although I must say, I've been watching the Amazon Prime show, Making the Cut, that fashion design show. Their fashion is all over the place. So I'm sure I could get away with putting my binding, my neckband on inside out if I were on that show. I don't know if any of you, I'm sure some of you have seen it, but woo, they are out there. They're definitely not making kids playwear like I am. Okay, so as I go around this neckline, I'm going to do the stretch and sew method, which is just I want my neckline stretched about 10%, and I just kind of do that by feel, going around here with a stop and start and position. You could totally just stretch it and then pin or clip it all the way around and then sew it if you are more comfortable with that. And I'm going to trim this extra tail because I cut my neckline my neckband way too long. But again, you just want to make sure there's around an inch extra on both sides, and that will just help us when we overlap our neckline to make sure that we can catch it in the next thing. So essentially, we'll fiddle with this a little bit more, but we're going to be overlapping our neck to create a V in the middle like this. Okay, so we'll be checking that out. So I'm gonna go, I don't know if I want to top stitch this. I have a very wide, I guess. All right, we're gonna go use the cover stitch and top stitch around the neckline before we put the bottom yoke on. So I have a two threads on here right now on the outer needles, which means it's a wider stitch. So we'll see how that looks. And it's sort of a cream off-white color. So it should be okay because it will actually match some of the flowers on the skirt. So I like to top stitch the neckline here before I close it. Just makes it a whole lot easier to start and stop. If you want to, you can of course press the neckline before you top stitch it. So here's my top stitching and the looper on the back. So now we've got that all enclosed. Okay, so And now we're going to get ready to put on that front yoke piece to make it the same as the back. So essentially what we're going to do is simply cross the V in the middle, and you can kind of see when it is lined up. Let's see. Can you see down here? It's because you could use a ruler. The fronts of my shirt are level, right? If I have the angle off, then you can see, oh, well, that's not a correct cross because it's not flat. They were at one point flat and straight and should return to be. And we have this extra neck here so that we can make sure that we have fabric to sew on when we're sewing our next piece on. So you could start, if you were just making a shirt, you could just put the rest of the shirt down here, and then if it was all one fabric, then of course it would just sort of blend in with a seam line across here. You could just start a dress, a skirt right there as well. But we're going to just add a little yoke so that our skirt isn't quite so high. This will just lower the skirt slightly on the top. And then you just kind of check that it's folded over, and then that's going to look like what you want. And then by the time you've sewn your seam allowance, you have a pretty cute, right, I wonder if it will sew decent with one needle. Yeah, so it does, Lois. I have one needle on the seam allowance and one needle off the seam allowance, and maybe not ideal, but it works. So as you're going over, especially where you have the V-neck, you want to make sure that you're catching all those layers of fabric from the neck binding and the cross of the neckline. We cut a little bit of a seam allowance on those underarms to make sure that when we open this up, have a cute V neckline and have that band across the front. So now we'll just trim the extra on the sides. I don't want to top stitch this because I don't really want to accent it, but it does need a kind of a press down. But you can see at this point how the V-neck looks. Okay. Yes, you could definitely do this on a sewing machine. You would just want to use a knit stretch or a stretch stitch so that when this is getting pulled, going on, it won't pop your seams. All right, so at this point, imagine this is the full rest of your t-shirt, this front panel, then you would put on the sleeves and finish your shirt. Okay, and that's how you could make a V-neck t-shirt. But we're going to make a dress. So I'm going to continue with adding on the sleeves. So we have our sleeves, and I have the front marked, so with right sides together I can now line up the front and the back and then everything in between and sew this on. And this would be, again, if you were just making it as a V-neck regular t-shirt. After you have that front done, then you would be able to go on with your sleeve insertion and other parts of your top. And you will notice if you watch me a lot, arms are really the one thing I still pin or clip a lot when I have that, just those two competing, contrasting curves are still a place I feel like I need to pin, pin, pin. I'm using just a cotton lycra for fabric. Whoever just asked that. So it's just a I would say a medium weight. It's not super thick, it's not super thin. It's definitely not as thin as this I'm wearing right now, this t-shirt made with a brushed jersey, and it's much, much thinner. So yeah, it's a cotton lycra, and but great for this sort of shirt and not being too thick or too thin. Share this to your timeline so that you can come back and you'll be able to find it really easy. You can also find it on the Brother Sews Facebook page or on my Life So Savory Facebook page. Okay, it's posted and shared on both of those places, but sometimes those feeds will get bogged down with other stuff. So it often is easier just if you share it to your own timeline, you'll be able to watch it there. You can also click through, so in the description of this post, I put a link to 2 tutorials. I put a link to the flutter sleeve tutorial, and I put a link to the V-neck tutorial, and you could go check out both of those there on, and get, all the information for the free patterns that I'm using, and both pattern hacks are more detailed on those posts. So that just gives you a couple places to go if you're looking for more information. And when this live video is over, you will be able to rewind to the beginning, even though you can't right now. All right, so it should start to be looking like a shirt. It is looking like a shirt. So there we go. So we have a start of the shirt. And how would you do a V-neck with a fold? So Sharon, instead of having this like 2-inch strip here, that would just be the remainder of the front of your shirt. So from here, it would just go straight down to the hem. So actually, I think that's sort of ideal. I just didn't want to start the skirt of my dress all the way up here because I'm making a dress on this one. So, but for a t-shirt to be easy, you just go down. And in fact, I got this idea from a t-shirt my daughter had that crossed there, had a line across here, and then it just went straight down to the hem as the rest of the front. So when you split your pattern in half at the beginning, when you're designing that front for the V-neck, you just keep the bottom half of your pattern as is, cut a seam allowance, make sure you add a little seam allowance on the top, and then you'd be able to sew the rest of it together. So that would be actually a pretty simple way to do it. Okay, so now we're going to sew the side seams on this little dress top that we have going. And I do have Rose here today. We'll see if she'll model this. She got last week off because we sewed for Jack. So we'll see if she'll cooperate to, well, she will try this on for us. It just depends on what her mood is. So I'm sewing down the underarm of the sleeve and then also down the little short side of the dress. Okay, we don't have much that we're sewing on. And then since we're not hemming the sleeve, we're going to go ahead and finish that loose serger seam real quick. If you were hemming it, you could just go ahead and hem your sleeve and not have to worry about your loose threads. And then okay. All right, so then we turn it right side out. see how everything's coming together. Okay, so we have a cute V-neck, we have very cute little flutter sleeves, and now we're ready to add the skirt onto it. So I have already pre-cut, so this is my fabric, and I think it's gonna look really cute with this pink top. I cut the width of the fabric because it isn't 60 wide. Okay, so I have no idea what this is. It actually feels like some pretty funky knit mix. Cindy, which are you talking about? Oh, my finish. This is a darning needle, an old, actually kind of rusty darning needle that I use. Has a big old eye. I can fit all those serger threads in there, and I pull it right back through my seam. So that's my quick fix. Okay, so we're gonna sew. We're gonna make a back seam in our skirt. Again, pre-cut to the right length. So I'm gonna sew those two salvage edges together, which will become our back seam. Make sure you guys can actually see what I'm doing. So then we have a circle here of a skirt. Okay, and now we need to gather the top of the skirt. So I'm going to attempt gathering on my serger, because I know many of you like to see that technique. And I usually keep it pretty simple. So the differential feed, I crank all the way up to 2. The normal is 1. And then I tighten my needles to between 6 and 7. And normally I have them between 4 and 5. So the combination of the differential feed, speeding along the feed dogs, as well as the tightening of the needles, will give me a nice gather as I go. It probably won't be perfect to the bottom of this dress, or this dress top, and I probably will need to, I would say probably gather it a little bit more, but let's just see. So the thinner the fabric, the better this works. What's the size? Yeah. The thinner the fabric, the better this machine gathers. Like tulle or chiffon is like, it gathers it right up, but you'll see. So let's see how it works on this cotton, or on this knit that we're using. So I'm just sewing right along the top. I'm trying not to trim off a whole lot, because I will trim a full seam allowance when I sew this onto the dress top. So we're getting some gathers, but really not great. And I think it is maybe because it's so thick. Try tightening my needles up a little bit more. It's doing a little bit more, but I don't want to do them too much, or I won't be able to pull it and gather it. So it's trying to gather, but I really do think this fabric's probably on the thicker side. So okay, so we definitely gathered it a little bit, but not a ton. So now we can pick out one of those needle threads from the gathers and pull it like you would a gathering thread on your sewing machine to gather it even more. So there's different threads to try and grab. I don't always grab the right one. But, okay, so then we're going to try and pull, right? So we can use this thread here to gather the dress or the skirt more fully. So this does give, I mean, it finishes the edge of your fabric, which I definitely like, right? The top of our skirt is now completely enclosed, and you can see I can continue to gather it. This is the size for a woman. I'm not quite sure what you mean. This is definitely Rose, my 6-year-old's skirt. Okay, so let me see if we're getting close. We are getting close. And we've only, of course, gathered on one side, so we'll have to slide those gathers around. So trying to move the gathers all the way. And you just, want to pray that your thread doesn't break, because then you've lost all the gathering that you just did. Okay, let's see how close we are to being the same. We are getting very close. Okay, so once you have the same circumference, you can tie off, use some thread, and tie off your gathering thread. And then before you finish, of course, rearrange your gathers. I need to even them out a little bit more. But once I tie this off, then I should be able to slide them without it getting bigger or smaller. Although I think they're sliding off this end. Uh-oh. So, I just play around with this for the next 5 years until I get it right. Okay, let's double check this again. Try to tie off this other side in hopes that it will stop sliding. I just want to even out my gathers. I don't want my gathers to go off the end of my skirt. I just want them even. Okay, so spread out your gathers. Okay, and then when they're going here, okay, so there we have a gathered skirt. And now with right sides together, so maybe I'll flip the skirt. It's probably easier to flip the skirt. We'll flip the skirt. And we're going to pin the skirt to this, right sides together. I'm going to put the seam where I sewed I sewed my width of fabric. I'm going to put that in the back center, and then we're just going to kind of ease our way around the top and see how we did for fitting and gathering. And this is stretch fabric, so you do have a little bit of leeway because you can stretch it if you need to. So if you find that one side is too short or one side is too long, it's pretty easy to fix. Okay, and I do like to put a bunch of pins or clips on this skirt to keep the gathers in place. I just find that it's easier to sew if I kind of have it attached in a bunch of places. Okay, so now we have with right sides together, you go from there. Can you go in a circle hem with the cover stitch? Yes, you can. Carolyn, I'll show you how I do it on the bottom of this dress. Okay, so let's just sew the dress together and then we'll go from there. So Arnell, in the description of this video, I linked to my Amazon shop, and I have this cute little item in that shop, and you can buy them there. So I would, of course, appreciate your support, and I love my clips. I love, love, love my clips. Okay, so now we want to put our serger back to original settings. I've done that before. And I'm going to put some clear elastic in the waist of this dress, and I'm going to sew it right in using my serger. So this is a handy little sewing tip that I discovered last year. I think I saw like a video on Facebook or something. So in the front of your serger foot is a little hole. It might be round, it might be square. Mine is round. And you thread your clear elastic right into that hole, and you bring it around the back, and then guess what? It just gets sewed right in the seam. It doesn't slip, it doesn't move, it like threads the tension perfectly. It's so, so simple, because I've struggled with clear elastic. It slides out of my seam, and I can't keep it in, and I got too many things to manage, so this just makes it super simple. So you will see how easy it is to include clear elastic into your seam by just threading it right through your foot. Okay, so I've got my clear elastic here. I have my dress here, and we are going to start sewing. Okay, so I'm trying to keep the gathers even as I sew. I find that I'm not very good with this. And sometimes when I'm finished sewing a skirt on, my once what looked like cute gathers were like weird and all over the place. So this is an area that I still am working on, getting to be a better sewer in. And that is, attaching a gathered skirt to a top. So that's why I'm starting and stopping. I'm trying to keep my skirt gathers organized and not weird. And you can hold this clear elastic. Really, the only thing you want to make sure that you're checking is it's not twisting. But that's why when you thread it through the foot of your machine, it generally does keep it from twisting. And it just gives a little bit of structure into the waist of my dress. If you wanted it to be tighter, then you would pull on that clear elastic and it would actually, tighten it. I don't really want it to be tighter. I just want it to add a little more so it doesn't hopefully stretch out is my goal of using that clear elastic in the seam. So keeping, because sometimes when you sew, at least when I sew, a skirt to a gathered a top to a gathered skirt, I do feel like sometimes I get, a bit of a stretched out mess. So this will keep me from doing that. Okay, so now you can't even actually see it, but the clear elastic is sewed right into that seam. It just sews right with the serger, which is great. Okay, so now the moment of truth. How did we do on attaching it? Looks pretty good, if I do say so myself. Right? So not too bad. Definitely needs to be pressed. We've got a little wobble along here. I have just a couple of serger threads that you can see here from my gathering stitch, so I definitely would need to clip those. And looks like here in the back I have a tiny spot where I didn't catch the top fabric. It's a little tiny hole. So let me just try to fix that real quick. Okay, so that's fixed, and anything else we'll fix later. Okay, so there we go. Let's see. Moving for me. Okay, so let's hem it, and then we'll call rows down. Okay, so I've said this many times before, but I don't know if all of you have heard it, but when I started sewing with my cover stitch, I was for the first time overwhelmed by a sewing machine. I've had multiple different sewing machines, multiple different brands in 2 different countries, because I used to live in Hong Kong and I had local brand sewing machines there. However, I was able to, all of them I'd been able to use, and it was just very simple for me. So, but when I got the stitch, I was, it was a big learning curve for me for the first time in my life. Okay, so, yeah, so I just keep using it. But, so you saw, I lifted the presser foot, I slid my hem under there, okay, and I'm starting on the back seam. I'm doing about a 1-inch hem, and I'll show you how when we come back around, how I finish my, the ends, okay, so, because that was, I think, not, where's my foot? Not having ends that came undone was kind of a big thing for me. So this feels tight. Oops, that's not that one. I have one needle that just felt a little bit tight. Okay, so that is looking good. We're going to have a double stitch hem, and actually the wide cover stitch I love on a hem, which is what I was doing before and why I have it set to go wide. And I'll show you when we get around. How it looks. So I have measured this and cut it to hopefully hit Rose right about at the knee, which means if she grows a little bit over the summer, she should still be able to wear this in the fall as just above the knee. So, you know, hopefully a cute length of a dress for many months to come. Oh, it broke a needle thread. Broke a needle thread. What happened? Again, learning curve. So back here, one of my needle threads decided to stop sewing. I think it got caught and broke. So let's rethread this needle. And this is the machine that I dislike doing live because I love it, but it can be so quirky. All right, I think it's sewing. Yes, okay, we're back in action. So where I joined that new thread, I will go back and pull the thread tails to the back side of the skirt, the 2 needle thread tails. I will pull them to the back side. I will tie them off, and I will put a little bit of fray check or some other sort of fray stopping medium on those. Okay, so now this is how I end when I am coming back around to a circle hem. Okay? Okay, so circle hem. So I just trimmed those tails. So the first thing I do is I sew over about 1.5 inches, overlap, trying to stitch directly on top of the original stitches. I changed to my clear cover stitch foot. There's a metal one as well, but I really like the clear one so I can try and see as clearly as possible that I'm on top of the old stitches. Then I raise my foot and I pull the needles all the way to the upper position. So I've overlapped a couple inches. Then I slide a pin under the needle threads, and they should pull out pretty easily if you have the foot up. And then you wiggle and pull to the back left. Pull your fabric out of the way so that when you do your needles, you won't stitch on the thread. And then I just chain off once or twice. Don't pull on this, because what we want is we want on the back side of the fabric to see the needle loops. There's not a back stitch, Cindy. That's why you have to do this. Okay, so because I pulled that out and then I pulled it and I chained it, I got 2 loops here, and I'd have 3 if I had 3 needles on there, and they're a loop. So I can just pull them with my pin, and now my threads are on the back and not the front. Okay, so I pulled the threads through to the back, and the Brother book for this machine says now you can just cut your threads. But I still tie it off. Rosie, time to come down. I still tie off my threads with at least a double knot, sometimes a triple knot. And then I will often even go back and put a dab of fray check on top of this knot after I've trimmed it, just to make sure that it's on there. But it's a pretty, so there's where I overlapped. You can see it's a little bit thicker. And there you can go. I'm folding over under about a 1-inch hem. Okay, so there's my 1-inch hem with the cover stitch looper on the back. You're too sore and too hungry? Well, we can get a snack when we're done trying this dress on. Yeah, you can finish your show. Okay, so. Okay, so I'm gonna step over here, put the dress on Rose, and then you'll get to see the finished look. Quick. Okay, stop. Take off your shirt. Oh, cuckoo banana to you too.
I love saying banana.
Okay.
Cuckoo banana.
Come here.
Cuckoo
Put your dress down, even though you're wearing shorts underneath of it.
Cuckoo banana.
Okay, I think we need the stool, because then we can get a better view of your whole look. Okay, so there is a really cute V neckline. We have adorable flutter sleeves and a pretty cute little dress. All right, can you turn around? Don't pull on it. Show us the back. So the back is just, stop. A solid piece. And I think, okay, turn around. But I would say, do you like your new dress? I have earrings on, I know. I haven't got. Here, we're going to do one close-up so they can see the top of your dress. Okay, so there's the V neckline. So cute. Yes,
Cuckoo
she's been
banana.
saying cuckoo banana for days, and this might be driving all of us a little bit crazy. Okay,
Cuckoo banana. Cuckoo banana.
oh, here's your shirt.
Cuckoo banana.
We're not sure where it came from, but it's the answer to everything. Okay, so we did it. We sewed